Hey, what's going on, you audio sleuths? Can I say sleuths? I don't know. Is sleuths will YouTube take my video down if I say sleuths? I don't know. But anyways, today's video, I'm basically gonna show you my process of how to get super clean, professional vocals using Pro Tools, and there's only 4 steps. I think these are the most crucial parts. I don't think that they get shown a lot on social media or YouTube. It's mostly like use these plugins. If you don't have this plugin, if you don't do it this way, or if you're not gain staging and you're not hitting this whatever bullshit number, then your vocals aren't going to sound clean. It's just a bunch of just like nonsense that I see on the internet all the time. It's kind of like just trying to take like a Honda and then you're putting like a Ferrari body over it, and then you're saying, here's your nice, clean vocal. Like, that's the way I think, and I think it's kind of bullshit. I want to show you my professional take on it and what I do and what have made clients happy and what will keep them coming back. Or if this is for personal use, this will give you a better understanding on the do's and don'ts and what to listen for and how you should approach mixing vocals or just mixing in general. So let me show you what we're working with today, and we'll go from there.
My love was sweet as some honey. My girl was sweet as can be. My lady brain was on Cambridge. That came with baggage I keep. Take off your rose-colored lenses. I bet your senses will peak. You see the flags in my pocket.
Cool. So very straightforward, nothing too crazy, just some rap vocals, hip hop vocals, whatever you want to call them. I recorded them, so I know if they sound like doo-doo, then I know that's on me. So the first thing I always suggest, and I always tell people, go through and clip gain everything. This is mostly going to be useful if you don't record with a compressor at all, which if you're not, start getting used to it. I think it's very helpful to record with a compressor on. If you're very, very new to it, maybe, do some research, ask some people if you know anybody that you trust or whatever, or you can watch some of my videos, wink, wink. I have some videos on how to use a compressor and stuff, and you can go check that out. But if not, do your research before you try to record the compressor. But if you're seasoned and you feel really good about using compressor, I highly suggest recording with a compressor on. It's very helpful when it comes to mixing, especially if you have access to gear. I think it's really important to try to get as much flavor out of those pieces of gear as you can, whether it's an LA2A, Distressor, 1176, whatever the case is. Just get a little bit of that analog juice, right? That's what I see the internet arguing about all the time, analog versus digital. So might as well get the juice out if you can, if it really does something, right? So the first thing I would suggest is go through and clip gain anything. Nothing too crazy. You don't want to go through and do every individual word, but you can see that when we zoom out, some parts are a little bit higher than others. Some are pretty consistent or whatever. So let's just go in. I'm going to solo this for video purposes, and we'll kind of listen and see if we can hear anything that's kind of jumping out to us.
My love was sweet as some honey. My girl was sweet as can be. My lady brain was on Cambridge. That came with baggage I keep. Take off your rose-colored.
So maybe like right here in the
My
we can kind of go in. We can zoom. If you don't know how to zoom in Pro Tools, it's Command brackets or R and T. If you want to zoom in, I personally use Command brackets. Not sure why. I'm one of the weird ones. And then if you want to clip gain up or down, I have mine set to 1 dB at a time, so you can see we're at 0, then it goes to 1, then 2. You can go in preferences and set your personal taste. When I'm mixing, I like to use 1 dB at a time. But if you want to do it the way I'm doing it without physically going with the mouse and doing that bullshit, if you hold shift and control, and up and down arrow will clip gain up or down. Let's do 3 dB. Let's see what that sounds like.
My love was sweet as some honey. My girl was sweet as can be. My lady.
So yeah, it comes in a little hot, but that's also that chest resonance coming in too. So we got to be mindful of that and be aware that we can control that.
My love was sweet as some honey. My girl was sweet as can be. My lady brain was on Cambridge. That came with baggage I keep.
So like here, these two words we'll just do 1 dB. And what's useful about this and why I suggest it is because before I'm doing any compression, any dynamic stuff, and even EQ too, it'll help you and help the compressors or EQ or whatever the case is, help your plugins not work as hard. This is something that I learned in college from a teacher. I never stopped using it. It was a very, very helpful tip. The more I grew and I was surrounded by engineers like Mike Dean and people like that, everybody does it. So it's a very good tip that I trust.
That came with baggage I keep. Take off your rose-colored lenses. I bet your senses will.
So you can hear with these two sections that we adjusted, the performance already sounds way more consistent.
My love was sweet as some honey. My girl was sweet as can be. My lady brain was on Cambridge. That came with baggage I keep. Take off your rose colored lenses. I bet your senses will peak. My
Cool. All right, now let's check this next section.
You see the flags in my pocket, clock it and let me go free. Black me on Insta, I see. Spies in your fence that I see. Holes in your logic, I peep. Holes, I feel both eyes on me. You see a bad mother heifer, but there's no bovine in me. I'm just a man with my lonely knowing it might never leave. Cause you see the
Cool, cool, cool. So it sounds way more consistent. I feel pretty good about that. Let's go in and add the first tool that I would use for vocals. So let's do a compressor. Let's do something like the LA2A, right? Or you know what? Let's do something stock because I want to show you that has nothing to do with specific plugins or anything. We can get the same job done. Let's do the standard compressor, which we need to make sure that we type in the right one. There it is. So cool. I like to use a 4:1 ratio. Just kind of start there. And then let's just press play. I only adjusted the ratio. This is default settings otherwise. And let's just see what it's doing.
My love was sweet as some honey. My girl was sweet as can be. My lady brain was on Cambridge. That came with baggage I keep. Take off your rose colored lenses. I bet your senses will peak.
So yeah, it's compressing a little hard right now. We need to definitely adjust the attack and release because it's kind of grabbing onto the signal and releasing the signal, in this case, the vocal. A little weird. So let's just go in. I'm going to adjust it, and then I'll kind of talk about what I adjusted and why.
My love was sweet as some honey. My girl was sweet as can be. My lady brain was on Cambridge. That came with baggage I keep. Take off your rose colored lenses. I bet your senses will peak. You see the flags in my pocket, clock it and let me go free. Black me on Insta, I see. Spies in your fence that I see. Holes in your logic, I peep. Holes, I feel both eyes on me. You see a bad mother heifer, but there's no bovine in me. I'm just a man with my lonely knowing it might never leave. Cause my love was sweet as some honey. My girl was sweet as can be. My lady brain was on Cambridge. That came with baggage I keep. Take off your rose colored lenses. I bet your senses will peak. You see the flags in my pocket, clock it and let me go free. Black me on Insta, I see. Spies in your fence that I see. Holes in your logic, I peep.
So yeah, I'm actually comfortable with that. Like obviously we don't have music and stuff going on. This is just soloed, so I'm kind of just going off of what it would sound like soloed. But even with solo, which I never work in, I highly suggest that you don't work in solo. But like I said, this is for the video purpose. I just want to make that very clear. But even with solo, you can hear that it's way less compressed than it was when it was at default. Basically, what I do personally, the way I like to work, and this could be backwards to somebody, maybe this isn't the quote unquote right way to do it. But it's just the way that I learned and the way that I got used to working is I like to adjust the threshold first and kind of get a sense of how much I want to compress, listening for certain words that are poking out that are starting to get too compressed and listening to the parts of the signal that maybe aren't getting compressed enough or what I'm looking for basically. I'm just kind of not really working the compressor too much, kind of looking away from the screen, closing my eyes, making sure that I'm not tricking my ears, which I highly recommend. If you start doing that, start, not looking at the screen as much or looking at the plugin or worried about what the meter says and kind of just going off of feel and vibe. That will be super, super helpful and you'll just not think about the shit as much and you'll start watching a lot less YouTube videos. Hopefully not mine, but you know what I'm saying? You'll trust yourself and your ears a little bit more and trust your gut a little bit more. Then I went in and I was adjusting the attack a little bit. I tried to open it up a little bit more, but then it kind of started getting a little too compressed and it wasn't grabbing onto the signal quick enough because it was kind of leaving it for the release to kind of hold down, I guess, if that makes sense. So I kind of just defaulted the attack by holding down option and click, and that will return the knob to its default. I felt like that was pretty good. 10 milliseconds sounded good to me. The release, I kind of opened it up a little bit more because I felt like it was letting go of the vocal a little too much, and then that's where we were getting a lot of that compression or that compressed sound. So I kind of opened it back up to kind of just stay open, and that's pretty much it. So let's play before and after.
My love was sweet as some honey. My girl was sweet as can be. My lady brain was on Cambridge. That came with baggage I keep. My love was sweet as some honey. My girl was sweet as can be. My lady brain was on Cambridge. That came with baggage I keep. Take off your rose colored lenses. I bet your senses will peak. You see the flags in my pocket, clock it and let me go free. Black me on Insta, I see. Spies in your fence that I see. Holes in your logic, I peep.
It sounds pretty damn good to me. So let's keep that there. And then the next thing I would do, let's do some corrective EQ. The first thing I would do, let's do a filter. I like to do 70 to start off with. It just depends really on the room and the artist. For the most part, let's get rid of some of that booth. I know the booth pretty well at this point, but I know that 70 is plenty for me.
My love was sweet as some honey. My girl was sweet as can be. My lady brain was on Cambridge. That came with baggage I keep. Take off your rose colored lenses. I bet your senses will peak. You see the flags in my pocket, clock it and let me go free. Black me on Insta, I see. Spies in your Finsta, I see. Holes in your logic, I peep.
Just wanted to show you like that's way too much because that 200, like 150 to 200, I see that a lot on the internet. Not saying that there's been cases where I had to use not use that high, but it's very rare. But 70 to 80, 100 is pushing it in my case if you want a super full natural vocal. And like I said, there's a lot of factors that play into that. It could be whether it was a bad performance or bad microphone or bad room. Most cases, you might need to raise that high pass a little bit higher. But if everything's recorded well and you're at a solid studio, your studio or booth is solid, 70 to 100 is plenty. But I like to keep 70, especially for rap. Don't want them to sound too thin, like Travis Scott or some shit.
My love was sweet as some honey. My girl was sweet as can be. My lady brain was on Cambridge. That came with baggage I keep. Take off your rose colored lenses. I bet your senses will peak. You see the flags in my pocket, clock it and let me go free. Black me on Insta, I see. Spies in your Finsta, I see. Holes in your logic, I peep. Holes, I feel both eyes on me. You see a bad mother heifer, but there's no bovine in me.
So yeah, you can see that I don't really like to like sweep and do all that shit. I used to do it just like everybody else, but I stopped doing it because you're kind of just tricking yourself too. Like for sure, if there is something like a hum or like a very high pitched like buzz coming from like a keyboard or something for whatever reason, and you really need to track it down, then that definitely comes in handy. But as far as like you going in and assuming that you need to do that every time, I promise you, like, soon as you stop doing that and you listen to what the problem is instead of looking for the problem, that will get you a more natural sounding vocal than sweeping around and trying to find the problem. Because at the end of the day, nobody likes 10 dB of 1K or 10 dB of 50 hertz or whatever the case is. You know what I mean? You're tricking yourself when you do that. Play it, listen. Actually, I might not even need to EQ. I think there's a little bit of low end in the chest that I need to get rid of, and there's some upper mid range that I need to tame. That's all I'm really hearing instead of just grabbing an EQ band and sweeping around and trying to find a problem that actually doesn't exist. Because if I did this, I'll show an example. So like let's say I did this.
My love was sweet as some honey. My girl was sweet as can be. My lady brain was on Cambridge. That came with baggage I keep. Take off your rose colored lenses. I bet your senses will peak. You see the flags in my pocket, clock it and let.
Like let's say I did that and I was like, "Oh man, it sounds really honky with 18 dB at 448." Then it's like, "Yeah, of course, I'm boosting 18 dB of that frequency. Of course it's going to sound like that." But if I take it off,
My love was sweet as some honey. My girl was sweet as can be. My lady brain was on Cambridge. That came with baggage I keep.
I feel like if you do it without doing the sweep, you'll get a lot more natural result and you don't try to chase down something that doesn't exist. In this case, I was listening to the vocal, and obviously, I even mentioned at the beginning there's some chest resonance too. I think I did. And then I was hearing some upper mid range. So I just kind of took that out, and then I'll show you before and after.
My love was sweet as some honey. My girl was sweet as can be. My lady brain was on Cambridge. That came with baggage I keep. Take off your rose colored lenses. I bet your senses will peak. You see the flags in my pocket, clock it and let me go free. Black me on Insta, I see.
So yeah, I mean that's like it's subtle EQ moves, but if you can really listen and you're listening on good speakers and good headphones at a pretty moderate volume that you listen to and you're comfortable with, that actually makes like kind of a huge difference with just those two EQ moves. And the most important thing is, like I said, is that it sounds natural, and that's something that I personally try to shoot for, unless it's a very specific sound or a very specific request from an artist. Like I'll give an example. Like I remember one time I was working with Smoke Perp. Even though we were using a C800, he wanted the vocals to sound super super bright, and he like specifically like he understood his way around plugins and stuff, and was like, "Can you add this frequency of this much?" And it was like 15 dB of like 10K or some crazy shit like that. But that's what he wanted, and obviously that's what I'm saying, like, these YouTube videos and stuff, when you want those instant results, like, obviously, who's not gonna like 10 dB of brightness because that's something that your ear is used to, and I can see why that, obviously, there's a lot of attraction to that kind of sound. At the end of the day, if you're, a professional and you really understand this stuff, you know that there's other ways of getting that sound, or in my case, when I was thinking about it, when I was in that situation, I was like, "Oh, there's other ways to get this sound." It may sound good in the studio or at the time, but if you took it to a different studio or your car or whatever, and if your car is already bright, it's going to sound very bright and sizzly, specifically referencing that situation. Do I compress or EQ first? I personally like to compress then EQ, and the reason for that is because when you compress specifically vocals in this case, it kind of squeezes those S's and the sibilants to come out a little bit more. Naturally, that's what happens with compression on vocals. So the reason I like to compress first is because I just like to picture that like the compressor is like squeezing those S's out that I'm not going to hear if I hadn't compressed first, right? I like to personally go through and I don't use a de-esser. I stopped using it. I've tried all of them. I've gotten recommendations and stuff. And I think personally, like I said, I try to go for a more natural sound. As far as an engineer, it makes you look more busier and you're putting in more work, right? Just a little tip over there if you're trying to look a little bit busier when you're behind the computer or something. But I just think that going in and manually de-essing stuff sounds a little bit more natural. And I'll show you an example.
My love was sweet as
So boom, first S. We can even see visually that that's an S. So let's break it. If you don't know how to break a clip, it's just B on the keyboard. And then we're going to take our clip gain, quick key that I showed you like 10 minutes ago, which is shift and control. We're going to bring that down. I always think the magic number to start with is 10. I don't know why. It just always works. It's like 10 to 15.
my love was sweet as some honey.
Okay, that was a little too much. All right. I just capped live on my video.
My love was sweet as some honey. My girl was sweet as can be.
So let's do that. Let's do that. So yeah, I mean, this is like, this is tedious, but at the end of the day, if, you really like editing, I personally like doing all this shit. So it's fun for me.
My love was sweet as some honey. My girl was sweet as can be. My lady.
And, another thing to keep in mind too is obviously we're still in solo. So this is going to either sound a lot more dramatic than it probably would against the track, or it might not be enough against the track, So kind of just, this is more about showing you the techniques and stuff that I go through.
My girl was sweet as can be. My lady.
And then even the breath, we can go through and turn down breaths too. So let's do that. Put a little fade.
Can be. My lady brain was on Cambridge. That came with baggage. I keep. Take off your rose colored.
So yeah, you get the point. Just go through, de-ess everything, and then boom. So another thing that I'm doing that you can see is that I'm making sure I'm adding all my fades. The amount of sessions that I've gotten or I see or I hear clicks and pops in people's sessions is insane. I know there's a stylistic thing. I think like 40 doesn't like to do fades and stuff, which whatever. He's in his own lane and world and he can do that because he's 40. But if you're trying to go for something professional, or if you're doing like a voiceover or a podcast edit or something, you want those things to sound professional as possible. You want to make sure that you go in and just kind of fade, make sure there's no clicks and pops. So like in this case, like if we clip gain all the way up, like let's say that was a click, which it does look like it. We just want to make sure that you're going in and fading. So these are like the 4 things that I think if you can go through your vocals and going through and doing these basic things and knowing how to do these basic things super efficiently will make you mix a lot quicker. If you found this video helpful, consider subscribing, check out my other stuff, and I'll see y'all on the next one. Peace.